Hey guys, this is Brad.
Darb.
Let's see. So, how do we get started with this? The last few days have been kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every time we take a break and we do a video, it could be 4 weeks of information that we have to fill in from 2 days ago, dropping the last video.
Yeah. Things are starting to move much faster. Oh gosh, if you have a chance, we're going to cover some stuff in this video. If you have a chance to go back and at least take a look at the first 2, maybe 3 episodes.
Yeah, if this is the first time you've tuned in, stop.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the first 3, catch up, and then come back. Not saying you have to, but you might be like, what are they even talking about? We're going to address a lot of things that we spoke about before. That's just very helpful.
Yeah.
And if you can go on and hit the little, I don't even know what it is. It's like a like button, but it looks like a boxing glove.
Yeah, the
hit
rumble
that
button, yeah.
And then you can leave comments and engage, and we'd love to interact. So
let's dive into, let's see, I think that the main thing of today is the history that we've all been told is going back to probably, I would say, about World War II. It's either largely incomplete or it's just not real. Mm-hmm. It's a mess. How does that affect us? Because if the story that you've been told is not real, then it makes it very, very hard to understand the things that you are seeing.
Yeah.
And I think, from your perspective, where did this kind of start for you? I think when I came out of the Navy, when we left Virginia and went back to the West Coast, mm-hmm. I was just seeing a lot of things. And I think this had to do with the War on Terror, but I was seeing a lot of things where you would see something that was on the news, and they would tell you something, and in news articles like a newspaper, or when you see stuff on the news, they're actually getting that information from different sources. And so if you looked at what was being said in a news article or on mainstream outlet news, and then you went back to the sources, you kind of got a different picture of what was going on. And it was happening like that quick. And so day to day to day, it was kind of like a layer of bullshit being stacked on another layer of bullshit, stacked on another layer of bullshit. And if you looked at the original sources, 2 to 3 days into a story, you were like, man, this is way off. This is not what happened. Some of the early things I saw, 2003, were the weapons of mass destruction and the smoking gun, and how they never found it. And even live broadcast Fox News, they talked about how 38 Russian ZIL trucks had come and picked up all of that stuff, and they had driven across Syria, or driven across Iraq and into Syria, and they had been out of the country for about a week before we actually invaded Iraq. Mm-hmm. And yet everybody in our news media and everybody in our government acted like, oh, we didn't find any smoking guns. Well, of course we didn't find the smoking gun, because all that stuff had been taken out.
Yeah. And
it was that kind of thing that I was talking to you, and mm-hmm. you were for a while, you were like, what are you even talking about?
Well, yeah. I mean, because you didn't even know me. But I come from a background, my dad was military.
Yeah.
And so we were brought up and told that the authority is the authority, and your government is your government, and you have to trust them and the establishment, and they are there for a reason because they know better than you, and that's what it is. And so I was a generation where I was too busy dealing with myself, myself, and I, and if it didn't directly affect me and my little bubble of my friends and my social engagement, or me directly at work, which had nothing to do with anything, I could care less. And I hate to say it like that, but I was passive. It was so like, whatever, that doesn't have anything. it doesn't have anything to do with me, so I'm not going to pay attention to it. And I think it's years and years and years of being married to you, and that's not a dig or a bad thing, but it's just when you're married to somebody for 20 years and you hear about it and they talk about it, and I don't want to say inundated, but you have that brain, you pick up on things and you're watching things unfold, and I'm just like, whatever, I was trying to get the dishes done or cook the dinner. It wasn't until late where it was like, okay, I now too can see and look back and go, the weirdness was there.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. Somebody talked about it on the radio the other day. We were listening.
Cognitive dissonance.
Whatever. I can't say it. It's like specifically.
Specifically.
I could see it. I could care less about it. So I didn't see it. Because it did not impact me and I could give a rat's freaking ass about it. An alien ship could land in front of me, but if I wasn't worried about aliens and the alien, I'd be like, oh,
yeah, whatever.
I'm going out. I mean, and the sad thing is, I've come out of it, and the fog is lifted, and I've gotten intellectual. I was intellectual in other things, but that kind of stuff was like boring. World War II, boring. War and Terror, whatever. I mean, that's how it was. And the sad thing is, we're in 2023. And there's still lots of people who are like, oh, people dropping dead from the COVID jab, whatever, COVID was a planned biological weapon, whatever. I'm now at the point where I'm like, no, whatever. Yeah. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. No, you can't think like that anymore.
It's time to wake up, and I think we were all trained, honestly, like you talk about being from a military family.
Yeah.
And
your government is there, and that's what they're for, and that was like the end all be all.
Trust the authority, and
trust the establishment, which is what it was taught.
Yeah, we got that. I think largely from grade school. We saw it with our kids. When we were kids, there was still a little bit more of, well, you need to think critically. There were still some teachers out there that were, you need to. Not trust everything that you see. You need to learn how to learn for yourself, some of that stuff. By the time our kids were going through school, it was very much, here's what's going to be on the next test. Here's the answers that are going to be on the next test. You memorize that and you regurgitate it for the test, and that's it. and I think that we have all largely, to some degree or another, we've lived our lives in kind of that paradigm of just trust what they tell you.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is by the time we got around to COVID, what they were telling us is not good. No. Where I think the first time I remember you really kind of going, what the what? We were watching Hunting Hitler. And
yes, because you forced me to watch something on the History Channel and I wanted to throw up.
And the thing was it was I think about as bad on me. And I was one of these people that was really trying to pay attention to alternative sources and alternative information and vet out what is really real and what is just absolute horseshit. And by the time we both sat down and watched that, I had enough questions from my understanding about what had happened at the end of World War II. It's like there was a lot of big, huge, empty voids that didn't fit anywhere and didn't quite make sense. So we sat down and we watched that, and by the time we got around to the third season, then I think there was
that weird fourth season because they did season 1 through 3. 3 was kind of like that final
yep,
we're dipping into it. And then the show kind of disappeared. Well, what was it, 2 years ago? They came out with their fourth 1 hour,
episode.
We're going to wrap it up. And as we have talked in these other videos, technology has changed and the comeuppance have been so fast that we had to go back last year, I think it was 2020. I say last year, 2021, 2020, beginning of 2022.
Yeah.
We had to go back and go, let's watch it from the beginning because we want to watch it with our eyes now.
Yeah.
As to what we were watching back in 2015. And we could go back and back then it was like, what? It was, the curiosity was there and all the questions were starting to arise. And now, fast forward to now, and we went back and watched it. We were watching it with, yep, Yep. We see it. We knew. We were watching this. We could tell we could put two and two together.
And so what the gist of it is, if you guys haven't had a chance to see it, and this comes from people that are special forces. It comes from a career ex-CIA analyst.
Yeah.
People that are historians on World War II. They all dug into this because they all had kind of, I think, some of the same questions, but most of them actually approached it from this is bullshit. And by the time you get to the end of it, and even their work was based on an Argentinian professor, you come to the pretty firm realization that World War II did not end with the Nazis losing the war.
Yeah.
That what was far more likely is that they just pulled a phoenix, that they had the appearance of death and that they went away, and they were actually planning up to 2 years before the war even ended. Mm-hmm. This was like 1943. They were well into plans on how to basically make it appear as if they lost the war, while at the same time leaving the country through this sucks, rat lines that were set up by the Catholic Church to get out of Germany, to get out of Europe, go to South America, and then
re-engage the Fourth Reich.
Yeah, they by the late 60s that Hitler actually made his way down there, that he died in a home probably in the mid 60s.
Yeah. I thought it was like, maybe mid.
I think it was mid to late 60s that he died down there, and that by probably the 70s they had decided to shift from trying to rebuild the Fourth Reich as a third generation warfare concept and build it as a fourth or fifth what we would think of today as fifth generation warfare. That they actually infected all of the countries that had fought them in World War II by infiltrating their governments, and more importantly, infiltrating their big business, including their food production, including
water,
including the pharmaceutical companies. There was actually a really big company called IG Farben. You go back to 2012, and IG Farben was still trading on the international markets using the Nazi Reichsmark.
Reichsmark.
And so when you get into like the history of who some of the main players in the World Economic Forum are, and who like their
key players then.
Yeah.
Their direct descendants are key players now.
And so you go, oh, this is really yucky.
It's never actually stopped.
Yeah. So we're still fighting in very much a very real sense. We're still fighting World War II.
Yeah. I mean, and people are going to watch this and go, no, you're full of crap. No, think about it, because you have to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but if you want to ask yourself a question to start the critical thought rolling, where do you think all the plots of all these spy
fiction,
movies, James Bond,
the
Spy Who Shagged Me, I mean, hello, dude with the cat.
Yeah, the dude with the cat. And Klaus Schwab.
$1 million.
What the hell?
I mean, it's a running joke, but they're based on real people, real things, and you have to go hidden in plain sight.
That comes down to things like Clancy.
Yeah,
Clancy. Boy, I'll tell you, we just watched
Some of All Fears.
We watched Some of All Fears the other night. I hadn't seen the movie since 2002 or.
I'd never seen it.
It come out, and after going down this path and researching all this stuff, we look back at that movie and we were like, how in the hell did a movie in 2002 have basically all of the same players and plot lines?
Oh, Brad, go back to 1994 with handsome Scottish guy that my mother decided that he could come on and sell laundry soap, and shut up, Sean Connery's on the television.
Oh, you're talking about Hunt for Red October when he was the captain.
I mean, they were talking about things in those movies, Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games. I mean, Jack Ryan has gone from 40 to 20 to 50 to 19, and I mean, that's an entirely different
And then
plot
there's
line, but
and then there's also
all the things.
If you're a real fan of Clancy, why his series and the franchises that he came up, why were they bastardized so bad? And things like, if you go back and you read Rainbow Six, here's a real interesting one. So that was a novel that he did about an international counterterrorism team that uncovered a plot where a pharmaceutical company actually wanted to poison the population of the world.
Yeah, so here's a little fun backstory.
Really weird.
You had the games.
Yeah.
My mother was a reader.
Yeah.
She was a book reader all of her life, and I wasn't a book reader until my 20s, but she read this crazy book that scared the bejesus out of her. And for about a year or so after that, after reading this book, we could not go out into public places without her being a freak. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Somebody's going to walk through a crowd of people and spray us with aerosol and just going to kill us. And I'm like, where did you get this ridiculous, insane idea, Mother? Well, I read it in this book that Tom Clancy wrote. And my dad made fun of her, and I made fun of her. And God bless my mother, she passed in 99, but I'm looking back and going, he was talking about these things
back then.
And though we thought she was crazy, she wasn't crazy.
Yeah, and then some of the details, if you've gone through all of his books and then you start to look at just the things we've seen in the past, I would say 24 to 36 months. Man, it's weird how prescient it was. And then there's little things like, how did Andrew Breitbart die?
And were they within days of each other?
It was a pretty close proximity of time. How did Tom Clancy die? And who were some of the people that they were really
influential? And
they were poking a certain group of people in the eye with a sharp stick with their information, and then they both passed. And it's not just
suddenly.
them.
They were the first suddenlies.
It's not just them. There were all of the doctors that 18 months prior to COVID happening, there were a lot of doctors that, a lot of people in virology, a lot of naturopathic doctors that died of very, very weird circumstances. And I'm not going to sit there and go every one of them, but man, it's weird. It is very weird.
I think you can literally, and this is my opinion, but I think you may agree, you can go back to the Tom Clancy death and the Andrew Breitbart death and start drawing spider webs to all these other weird deaths. What was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Anthony Bourdain, if you remember who Anthony Bourdain was. God. He was a chef.
Yeah.
He was a famous chef who traveled to all these different countries to do food, to learn about different food, and he ate exotic food. Well, not long before his tragic drowning or whatever was happening to him.
It was a suicide.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Suicide.
Another one.
He had a travel show where he was traveling and eating with Obama.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how. And how far we want to go into all that.
He also had made. You can go on and find it yourself, research it. He had made snippets or quotes or had statements in regards to where he did not agree and found fault with the Clinton family and the Clinton Foundation and how they were doing things, because he was in these countries where he was seeing the direct effects of what had supposedly they were doing to help these people, and he's like, they're not helping these people, and all of a sudden,
there's just a lot of nefarious stuff has been at play, and for all the coincidences, at some point you have to kind of go,
are they really?
There's not, you can't stack this many coincidences on the head of a pin. It just doesn't work. and that's kind of what we're trying to describe. Oh no, you got to trust the authorities, you got to trust your government. At what point does that break down?
Yeah.
And I think in the last 2 years it started to break down for a lot of people. And that's what we're trying to do, is go, hey, if you're seeing those things, you're not crazy.
No, and if you're just coming out of it,
you're not crazy.
There are people who have been there for a while or have seen this for a while, who are not here to ridicule you or do the "I told you so" thing, but to go, I may be able to help you with some of these weird questions you have. So,
so
let us
hit
know.
Let us know. Yeah, comment in the bottom down there at Rumble, or if you're seeing this on BitChute, I think they've got a comment section as well.
Yeah.
Follow that.
Golly.
Let's see.
What do we do? I mean,
what do you do about all this stuff? Well, if you're like us and you read the book, the boss, right before he transcended back into heaven, he told his guys, "Hey, sell your coat, sell your cloak, and buy yourself a sword." He wanted his people to be armed because he knew that there were dangerous times coming. So anybody that wants to say that Jesus wasn't a fan of the Second Amendment, or that it's just not how it works, man. I mean, you look at his creation. He even gave the bee a stinger, and what does the bee do? It just goes from plant to plant to plant, pollinating things. So, yeah, well, he armed it, and he's armed most of the things in his creation. What he was able to do with human beings is, our primary weapon is this guy up here. And so how do you arm yourself in a 5th generation fight? Well,
Knowledge.
one, start digging into the knowledge. We do know that they do not want to go into a 3rd generation fight, because if these bad guys wind up having to go up against armed people, militaries, law enforcement, it's not going to end up well for them. Mm-hmm. And so they're largely trying to do whatever conflict that they're doing with us, they're trying to keep it below the threshold of like armed violence. Well, we have to then think about, if you're trying to do that, how would they try to attack you? Well, this is what we've been saying over and over: food, medicine. These are the things where we need to go out and take dominion back.
Yeah. So
take control of your food. Take control, and that's in your backyard. If you can do it, start there. Co-op. With some other neighbors. Maybe you can't grow everything. Like our property grows certain things fantastic, but it doesn't grow other things very well. And so
we don't have the means to have livestock on our property right now, but we have
friends,
community of people that do.
Yeah.
So we can grow food, they can raise meat, and we are going to work together in concert to share.
And take care of that problem and rebuild some of the big economy that we rely on. Well, that's enemy-held territory. So if you can support local ranchers, local farmers, that's another way to go. Mm-hmm. We're starting to look at things like school, the information that's being taught to our kids. The last thing you want to do is wake up to this and then go, "Wow, they turned my kid into an enemy." Well, that's largely what you're seeing. And a lot of the curriculum, it's weaponized curriculum, and it's weaponized against you, but it's also weaponized against your kid.
Yeah.
It's there to turn your kid into a slave, easily controlled, someone that fulfills all the things that they need, not necessarily what your kid needs.
Remember the book 1984 that we were all forced to read back in like middle school?
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's been happening.
It's happened.
Generations repeat themselves, and it's happening on a larger scale.
Hugely.
Hugely.
Yeah, the other one is your dollars. What are you doing with your dollars?
Yeah.
How much of your money are you spending in the big box stores? When you walk into the big box store, look at where the products are made. Yeah. And some of these places, China, the Chinese, I have nothing against the Chinese people, but the Chinese Communist government it's a deep state apparatus government. Yeah. It is part of this problem going all the way back to World War II. In the 70s, there were things that they tried to do to free China, and the bad guys turned that stuff back around, and they've turned China basically into a slave state.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you think of slavery ending, at the end of the Civil War, will pick up your iPhone or whatever device that you're looking on this, understand that oh yeah, all your clothes, it's everything. That's literally made by people that are working for pennies a day.
Coming from somebody who I said earlier in this vidcast about where things didn't directly affect me, I remember verbatim being middle school, 8th grade, going into 9th grade. We had a dance. This is going to seem off the chain, but we had a dance, and I wanted to go to this. A boy asked me to a dance, and so I had to go get a dress. And so my mom was like, "Well, let's go buy a dress." And everybody was going. I lived in the Bay Area. Everybody was going to the Jessica McClintock dress factory, and you could go buy your dress. Well, right down the street, literally, it was in a warehouse district. Right down the road from the Jessica McClintock dress factory was the Esprit factory. Girls would go buy their Esprit clothes, and that was the first time I ever saw a protest. People were standing on the sidewalk with signs, and they were protesting, and I was like, "Mom, what's going on?" And my mom didn't know, but she just assumed. She goes, "Oh, it's probably they were laid off, or they have, what were they called, snipe? There's a word for them. They brought other people to do their job, and these people decided to strike.
Yeah. And
they're mad." And I was like, "Oh, well, when we went home, I remember about 2 weeks later, it was after the dance. I don't know, the dance is key. She goes, Darb, remember that protest we saw?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, well, what?" She goes, child slave labor. Esprit was caught using child slave labor in whatever country they were into, whatever it was, and people were protesting their clothing. Well, then it turned into Banana Republic. Then it turned into Guess. Then it turned into all these brands that were real popular when I was a kid. That was the first time I heard of, they're making little kids sew your sweatshirts, and then things change. That was the first time I saw that.
And under the last, I would say under the Bush administration, under the Obama administration, that problem has gotten worse, but we've heard less and less about it.
Oh, yeah.
And so now when people are trying to tell you, no, there literally is human trafficking and slavery, and it's child labor, it's child sex labor. It's so god awful,
it's disgusting.
Horrible. But those things are real.
Yeah.
And
again,
they've not
lots
gotten
of your
smaller.
movies. Where are they coming from? Why are you seeing these movies with all these weird, horrible plot lines? Because it's being played out right in front of your face.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at today. When you're taking a look at your news, when you're thinking of how all of these stories stack up, do it with more of a critical eye.
Yeah.
And now it's really time to, again, sell your cloak, get a sword, arm yourself. And by arming yourself, you need to start defending. This is not an offensive thing.
No.
Largely, we're going to win this by how do we say it? The best defense is a good offense. Well, we need the American people and people worldwide to turn on and start making different decisions. And if you will make different decisions, we're going to begin to make the ground that the enemy operates in just untenable. They won't be able to do it anymore. And that's going to be a big part of getting out of this.
Your best weapon against tyranny is the knowledge that you retain.
Well,
if you can go out and learn, and you can go out and be not one step ahead of the game, but 25 steps ahead of the game, then you have your best defense.
Yeah. You're going to have to,
because you're in the,
but you're going to have to act on it.
Yeah.
This is not just a head game opportunity. You're going to have to know it and then do something about it.
Yeah. Take action.
Take action. I think that's it. Cool.
I think that's all we want to ram down these poor little people's throats today.
Wait for 2 days from now.
Yeah. Wait till Wednesday.
Wait till Wednesday. Okay, that's it. Have a good one.
Bye.
That mean old casino cleaned my pants and hung him out to dry. Drown the town of Reno, leave the lights on, let him die.